we're here in this reality, and yes, the monetized debt system could be improved upon, but it's what we got to work with. We still got to earn a living. We still got to pay for a roof over our heads. We still got to put food on the table. So we still have to work within that constraint. At times, the workplace could be like in our content Loosh fest. The way that things are set up, it just sucks on our vital energies. It becomes a preoccupation at times because of the personalities involved, and many times entity-infested personalities. So we bring all this angst and anxiety with us at home. We're still preoccupied with all the crap we had to endure, at work, and the fact that we're going to have to go back to it on Monday.
Things are not what they seem to be. Patterns and the chaos. It doesn't stop just at home and in your personal life. It bleeds over into your jobs and your workplace experience. Very highly customer service oriented industries, which puts you in the line of fire of just so many people. Not only do you have so many coworkers and bosses going on, endless people interactions with the public, there's just weirdness pervading so many of these jobs.
Circumstances are created in the workplace which almost guarantee chaos, confusion, and disorganization. Seemingly the wrong people, but from a Matrix Loosh Fest standpoint, perhaps the right people are put into positions, and by hook and crook, destiny, call it what you will, you're compelled to interact with these people almost on a daily basis. These work environments are seemingly set up to make it difficult for people.
That's part of the whole repeating patterns and the chaos. And one of the biggest ones that I've noticed was the incompetent and or ineffectual managers and bosses that get put into positions of power and who never seem to be able to get fired, no matter how bad they are. And by bad, I'm talking about creating policies that can drive departments or an entire company into the ground, mistreatment of employees, you name it. They are not good at their job. They have no business being at their job, and yet they are, and they never seem to get fired. If anything, they keep getting rewarded and just keep moving higher and higher in life. And it's just, okay, maybe that's just that particular company. It's how they do things. They're not that bright, whatever. But and you just keep seeing that over and over across so many industries, so many different companies across the country. There's something to that. Then you start to get suspicious. That's one of the patterns, the top of the list, because it affects everything at a company. The manager or the boss is the most important. They have all the power, and they can make or break a company, and they can make or break your personal experience as an employee. The second one is the troublemaker, psycho crazy employees who never seem to get fired. No matter how much bad behavior they display and how bad they are at their job, it's almost like they're getting protected. And upper management just, seeming to have this, what I call the gosh, golly gee, I just don't know how to handle this situation, even though they're the manager and are supposed to be managing, they're not. And there's like they're allowing these troublemaker employees to run rampant and bully other employees, be really sucky at their job, which is affecting all the other employees around them. So, they're just creating all these problems, and they never get fired. And again, if you just see that at one job, you're like, okay, well, that's just how they do things here. But when you're seeing it across the board, it's just over and over and over again at so many companies, you got to wonder, what is going on here? Big pattern in the chaos that, over time I started to see. And then as far as the companies and the way that they're doing things, so you've got the problematic, incompetent bosses, it's the troublemaker employees that never seem to get fired. Then you have the actual policies and procedures. And this is where, for me, it gets even weirder because, again, we're talking across different industries where you would think different industries, different companies, things should be vastly different, and yet they're not. You see the same type of ineffectual policies and procedures being put into place that usually at the hands of these inept bosses, and these policies are designed to maximize negative energy production from employees. They create endless distraction while sapping employees' energy, so the employees aren't able to make the most of their personal lives and maybe not even able to fill their destinies or life missions. And overall, these ineffectual policies are driving things into the ground, again, whether it's a department or the entire company as a whole. So I've seen weirdly specific types of policies and procedures in effect at different industries that you would think are completely unrelated. So this shouldn't be happening, but it does. So again, it's suspicious, and it's a pattern in the chaos. Some of it seems mild and common, but then it just gets weirder and more specific. But they have the overloaded job descriptions. You have employees that are doing sometimes the work of 2, 3, or 4 employees, and I describe it like a hamster in a wheel that just keeps going faster and faster, but there's no corresponding pay rate increase. And this is the way things are. You're going to be doing 3 people's jobs, and it doesn't matter that it's not good for you or that it's not good for the company or the department. They don't care. There's just they don't care. Lack of decent training. So like I've experienced this over and over where you're just barely given the tools that you need to be able to do your job. And then they just kind of set you loose out there to go do your job. And of course, that's going to create problems not only for you, but for any customers or other employees you're working with when people aren't properly trained. But again, they don't seem to care. I call it the irregularly scheduled shitstorm days. And this is where the maximum amount of circumstances and craziness are being scheduled to coincide all at once on one or two specific days every week instead of being spread out. It is just a shitstorm day. And you're just, you spend you dread it before you even go in. And when you're there, you're just trying to get through your shift. And of course, it doesn't need to be that way. Like management has the power to change the way things are being done, maybe spread things out, but no, they're not. And the reason to me this is something worth talking about is because I've seen where the bosses in charge seem to enjoy, they knew that it was a shitstorm day for the employee and they seem to enjoy it. There's like a smile, a smirk, there's a glint in the eyes. They're almost like they're telling you almost with glee what you're going to have to be suffering through and enduring on these days, and they're getting off on it. That's a suspicious pattern in the chaos. Like, what's going on there? It's like, not only are they doing the same ineffectual type of policy, but you can see that they see it and they know and they enjoy it. So it's like they're enjoying almost like torturing you, like you're going to have to go through this. And so that's a suspicious thing. There's another thing I talked about, which is unfortunately pretty common. I call it the bait and switch phenomenon, where, the way things are presented to a potential employee during the interview process is not what it ends up being. So once you actually start the job, the truth comes out of what the real situation is going to be. So maybe the boss's personality does a 180 from the whole sweetness and light routine they may have presented during the interviews, and now they become like Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde. They become somebody else once you start working for them. The job duties themselves may get switched around to the point where it's maybe not even the same job that you were interviewing for. They're adding more stuff to it, or stuff they withheld they didn't tell you about in the interview, kind of trick you. So you start and then the situation isn't what you thought it was going to be. Or even worse, they do shenanigans with salary. They try to convince you once you start to agree to maybe getting a lower pay rate than what you originally were negotiating. Little shenanigans with that. But, either way, they knew, and it's kind of like they're tricking you. And the reasoning behind it, I've said, is kind of like arrogance or delusion. They sort of believe, the employee is going to be so desperate for the job, so grateful for it maybe, or financially desperate that they'll just accept these changes and go with it. It just creates mayhem for the employee if their salary is getting changed or their job duties are getting changed.
There's almost a gaslighting element also to it. And whether the gaslighters, i.e. the bosses, the upper management, etc., are consciously aware of it, in their seeming obliviousness, they don't seem to know or don't seem to care what's going on in the workplace on a day-to-day, moment-by-moment basis.
Yes.
And then when you take these issues to the meetings, it's like it goes in one ear, out the other. They talk as if they haven't even heard you. And then it's just a continuation. If anything, at times, they add on more policies and more procedures to screw things up even more.
I've kind of seen all of that in some form. I've definitely seen where they do know. They know exactly. That's what tipped me off. You see that a few times. You begin to, light bulbs going off over your head. This isn't just mere stupidity and fallible human behavior. This is willful. They know it. When, I talk in the article about, indicators that you can see that somebody, kind of has a negative force operating through them, some telltale indicators. You see, I call it the glint in the eye with the kind of the smirk, and they're saying weird pointed things, or, you just see that they know. But then I've also seen it where the bosses really do seem, it's almost like their eyes are just glazed over. They're just far away. They just don't seem to care. It just seems like stupidity, but I do still think in those instances there's more going on. They just don't, they're like mentally checked out. Like they don't, like you said, like they don't know what's going on in their own department, and they're just la la la, in one ear out the other, and yet it's the employees almost seem to know more than the bosses, and the employees are more competent. Like you said, you go into these meetings and you can see what needs to be done. You're presenting your ideas, and as in when you're out the other, yeah, that's nice. And they just never do these changes, even though this would really solve problems. It could even maximize revenue. And see, that's almost kind of the giveaway right there, where you see that over and over. They're losing money, jeopardizing their business, And they don't care. Like when valid procedures and policies are being presented to them that could maximize revenue, because isn't that what the whole purpose of any company is? You're trying to make money. So what's going on when they don't value revenue and they seem to value instead, they're putting more of an emphasis on keeping all the employees discombobulated, frustrated, angry, energy drained. That actually becomes, it seems like that's what the priority is here. They're uninterested in making money. They're interested in making your life miserable. And, it may sound, angry or bitter, but again, if you just see this happening across enough industries, like people like me and you who've temped and we've been out there and we've seen this over and over, you have to question it. It's just, at some point, it's no longer a coincidence. It isn't just human stupidity. There is something else happening here.
One thing I've also noticed, too, is the hyperdimensional archontic aspect to this, the Loosh generating aspect to it. When that smirk comes through, either a colleague or an employee, that's the archontic matrix, Agent Smith syndrome, manifesting itself.
Yes.
That sardonic smirk, sadistic in nature, where you're just being put through your paces and every bit of solution is being extracted at that moment. Dealing with the public, that's a whole nother hyper dimension behind this. Because I've worked myself in a hotel registry where the hotel I worked at along the Colorado River in Laughlin, Nevada, was chronically overbooked, deliberately overbooked. And on top of that, you talked about the shitstorm days. There were days we dreaded, Texas Hold'em convention, great. And then you look at the calendar again, slot machine convention or whatever, great. Because the line would be literally out the door. So you have all these people lined up, chronically overbooked to the point where we had to scramble to find some of these people rooms. And also, we were told that if necessary, there are certain categories of client and certain categories of rooms where we could bump them, where we just scroll down, look for a letter C next to like a booked room with guests expecting to have that room. No way. It's like we just take them right out, we slot someone right in. Because you have someone in front of you that has all these expectations screamed at me, and this is like the Matrix, and I'm thinking, this is a Matrix moment where this entity-infested woman is screaming at me. And, we're trained to work with these people, like, get through them. I spent 40 minutes with this whack job trying to help her, and all I got out of it was just a bunch of grief. Finally, one of my colleagues took pity on me and said, look, I know I'm going to have to start. I don't start for another half hour, but just go and take a break, I'll take over from here. But that's one of the pitfalls. There's the energetic, Loosh draining aspect to it, where unless someone is metaphysically aware and put their energetic barriers up, these Agent Smiths will pop up, when you're working with the public and just drain the hell out of you.
Oh, yeah. It's funny. I'm listening to you describe that. It's been a long time since I've worked in hotels, but you're bringing it all back. It's like, oh, God, I've had that. I've everything you just described, I've had it. Because I worked at so many different hotels in Southern California for so many years. And hotels is the one industry that I've always sworn I will never work in again. The last time I did it was 2005 in Charlottesville, Virginia, a very high-level hotel. And that I've had, I will never, ever, ever. They were the worst jobs I've ever had for everything you just outlined. I mean, it's like you've worked at the same hotels I've worked. But it's funny. It's universal. It's all the same, And the whole thing about, bumping people. Someone is in front of you throwing a fit, so you bump someone else who has a valid reservation. So that when they go to check in later, now you've got to deal with them. But, yeah. So hotels is the absolute worst, and I think it's worse than waitressing even, because at least people are happy when they're getting their food, but with the hotels, it brings out the absolute worst in people because they're tired, they've been traveling, they have expectations, and they don't get what they want. They're throwing literal temper tantrums and meltdowns.
The kids are being a distraction, tugging at their legs. Oh, yeah.
It's just the one that you're going to most likely see the Agent Smith phenomenon happening out of everything I've ever done. That was them. And it's like if you're working an 8-hour shift, it's throughout your entire shift, 5 days a week. It's exhausting and energy draining and very disheartening. You're getting yelled at all the time, screamed at. I've been cussed at and called names because someone couldn't get the room type that they want. I mean, it brings out the worst of people. Once you realize what's going on and you're aware of the potential, you can start to take control of your life, get jobs that are better for you and in your best interest through like visualization, manifestation, that sort of thing. For people going through these kinds of negative jobs, you got to get out, and you got to find a way to get out. We don't deserve that. Don't put yourself in the line of fire. So in certain industries where it's guaranteed and there's no two ways around it, and hotels is one of them. So in certain industries, avoid at all costs, and that's one of them. first off, the boss who interviewed me, she did the 180 switcheroo in personality once I started. So she was all nice in the interview, became a whole other person once I started, and they just didn't care, and they almost seemed to take delight in it. They enjoyed seeing the stress it was going to cause, and things could have easily been changed, and they just wouldn't do it. And there was no reason why they wouldn't do it. So I have no choice but to conclude there's something negative at work here. It's operating through people, and one of the main reasons is to try to get energy, to farm your energy, siphon that energy off of you, create maximum amount of negative emotions, drain your energy, drain your free time, and derail you in general. It's a microcosm. The whole world is functioning like this. It's not just jobs. Everywhere we go, it's happening on a day-to-day basis right under your nose. It's from top to bottom. This entire reality is set up upside down and backwards from what it should ideally be to maximize energy draining, time wasting, distraction, diversion, and in the worst case scenario, death as a form of sacrifice. It's like feeding these negative things. They need human sacrifice thrown out. It isn't enough to just have negative energy. You got to have death too. And not to try to bring everybody down who's listening and think that it's all hopeless and negative, because I do at the end try to explain what can we do about this. In a lot of ways we can't change what's happening on macro level worldwide, but you can start with your own individual situation, becoming aware that this is happening most likely to you at some, in some level at some point, and then, through awareness and knowledge, start to try to get the upper hand and turn the table so you don't become a victim of this, and you can turn things around, at least for yourself. You got to start at the individual level.
Like you just pointed out, it's important to remind oneself, okay, this is a journey. I'm in physical embodiment, but I'm here even though it's not entirely revealed to me yet what I'm supposed to do. So when one finds himself in these crappy situations, just hold out hope that things may get better, and that you're there, as much as a cliche as it sounds like, that you're there for a reason to learn something at that particular moment in time.
Exactly. Just seemingly different coworkers across space and time do the same phenomenon with the same scripts, like saying the same verbatim things, the same scripted weird stuff that they're saying, and it's coming out of another person, and it's an impossibility. Like, how is this person saying exactly word for word what this other person said several years ago in a whole other state? It's another clue of, that Archon thing kind of popping through. The metaphysical phenomenon, like the idea of being driven out of a job, the obstacles and omens that one may encounter if they're trying to go for a job they're not meant to be at. Like, it's kind of like the universe or something is trying to tell you you're not supposed to be here. So, to give listeners some food for thought about that's like a real phenomenon that might happen to people. I've had it verified by other people who confirm, yes, I've experienced that too. So I know it's not just me. Stuff to be on the lookout for. It's just the more weirdness that I've experienced.
Smartly, and you're listening to the Cosmic Switchboard Show. If you like what we do, if you believe in what we do, please go to thecosmicswitchboard.com, sign up and become a member, and we'll see you at the top of the next segment.